Are we ready?
Hello, everyone. Hi, sister.
Hey, little sis. I'm so excited about today. We have finally come to the day that I've been looking forward to.
Me too.
And I get to interview my little sister. So we're going to start with introductions. And then we're going to talk about the Center for Black Deaf Studies. And I'll interview you. And at the end, we'll save some time for a Q&A. So the audience has an opportunity to really participate. And I'm very much looking forward to this. And I'm sure the audience will have some questions for us.
Okay.
All right, so we're ready to go. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining this panel, taking time out of your busy schedules to bear witness to another webinar on a Friday afternoon. And I really have to say, thank God it's Friday. I forgot to introduce myself. I am Dr. Carolyn McCaskill, Director of the Center for Black Deaf Studies, CBDS. We were established as of the fall of 2020, and our goal is to really spotlight the achievements of Black deaf people, their experiences, their history, their community, their culture, and also we do research to really shed light on the experiences of Black deaf people and to advocate for that experience. We are working within disciplines that include bilingualism and diversity to make sure that we are really making advancements for Black, deaf, and hard of hearing people. And we have a proud tradition at Gallaudet of research and scholarly activity that really prepares our graduates for career opportunities in very highly competitive, technological, and a rapidly changing world. The Center for Black Deaf Studies is hosting a variety of lecture series where we are spotlighting outstanding trailblazers within the Black deaf community. And I really cannot control myself because I'm so excited about our next speaker, who happens to be my little sister, Dr. Angela McCaskill. I am so proud of her. She tells people about me, and now I have an opportunity to brag about her.
Thank you.
Sister Angela is an author, and we have another author in our family. People know me, Carolyn, as an author of Black ASL, but now my sister is an author as well of books related to Black deaf professionals with PhDs or doctorates. From pipeline to the finish line. She is much more than just my sister, of course. This is Angela's name sign. Some people use a different name sign, and we typically use both for her. She has received degrees in social work from Alabama State University in 1980. And she also went to Howard University and got her MSW in 1984 and her PhD at Gallaudet. My little sister was the first Black deaf woman to get a PhD from Gallaudet. So I have to brag about that. Totally proud of her for that. I was the second. And she says she looks up to me, but in this case, as the big sister, I look up to her because she set the precedent at Gallaudet.
Aw, thanks, sis.
Her dissertation discussed the impact of high stakes exams for deaf and hard of hearing students from 2014 to 2016. Correction to the interpretation. From 2014 to 2016, Dr. Angela served as associate professor in the public administration program. And she also served as Gallaudet University's first deputy to the president and associate provost for diversity and inclusion. Dr. Angela began her career at Model Secondary School for the Deaf, MSSD, serving as a program manager. She went on to become an educational program specialist within the United States Department of Education. And in 2007, she returned to Gallaudet and to academia, serving as a research administrator and director of diversity initiatives for the Science of Learning Center on Visual Language and Visual Learning, VL2. She has been honored by the National Black Deaf Advocates as the recipient of the 2013 Andrew Foster Humanitarian Award and by the Developmental Roundtable for Upward Mobility, which is also known as DRUM. That happened in 2013. She received the Dr. Martin Luther King Achievement Award. And recently, she published the first and second edition titled Black Deaf Doctorates, From Pipeline to the Finish Line. As a way to inspire future generations of Black deaf researchers and academics. And she had the nerve to retire before I did.
Yes, yes. And I am happily retired, just to let you know. Retirement is looking good.
I'm still working, but I am very much loving working in the Center for Black Deaf Studies. And I am so excited to have this opportunity to interview you. So let's get started. And let me ask you, what inspired you to write your book?
Well, before I answer that question, I want to say thank you so much for inviting me to be a part of this webinar. I am absolutely thrilled to be here. At the same time, I'm so proud of you, big sister. The work that you are doing with the Center for Black Deaf Studies is amazing. You are a shining star, girl. So I am so proud of you and definitely honored to be here with you today. It is my pleasure. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure as well.
All right, so the first question, what inspired me to write the first edition? Well, for the first edition of the book, I was actually inspired by a panel that I hosted back in 2012 during Black History Month. And at that time, I was working as deputy to the Provost for Equity and Diversity and Inclusion. And that panel, the goal was just to introduce the concept of getting a PhD to the audience. So we did invite students from Kindle, students from MSD, and students from Gallaudet University. So it was really nice to have that mixture of students from all ages and from all groups at Gallaudet, and faculty and staff members were present as well. So I strongly believe that we really have to encourage the young children to dream. Encourage them to dream big, to dream outside of their imagination. So that panel was what really inspired me to think, you know what, I need to write a book about this. And it was just amazing and eye-opening. Do you remember that panel?
Absolutely. I definitely remember the panel as if it were yesterday. It's hard to believe that it was 2012. Time has gone so fast. And I know you have some clips of the panel, and we'll be showing some of those clips and what the panel looked like, okay?
All right. Here we go. Here we go.
Thank you all for coming today. This is Dr. Angela McCaskill. This is such an exciting time for us to be able to show our numbers, to show the number of everyone here, the Black Deaf students, undergraduate, high school students, that one day you can be wearing this role. And for all of you Black Deaf students and for all Gallaudet students, so you can be able to achieve what we have. We look forward to being able to share our experiences with you.
I feel proud of myself, and at the same time, I feel a bit dejected. It's 2012, and we have a total of 12 known Black deaf people with doctoral degrees. It's sad. And I want all of the students, how many of you are from Kendall School here? How many from Kendall School? Please show your hands. And how many from MSSD? Let me see. How many from Gallaudet? Where are you? We hosted this panel to let you know that if you dream it, you can achieve it. I grew up very, very poor, and I learned to have faith in myself. And I developed a support group to help me through this process. So you have to dream, and you can achieve. The number 12 is really, really quite sad. We have mentors for you, we'll have support for you, and it's very important that you believe in yourself. But first, you have to dream that you can accomplish it. I'm proud to be one of 12, but I want to see more of us in the pipeline. Wow.
Sweet memories. I too feel like it was just yesterday that happened.
I really remember that as well. And it does feel like time goes by so quickly. And at that time, there were only 12 of us. And I'm excited about your book that now shares that we can say that it's more than 12. And it's very cool that you have. Let's ask that you, at the time of the panel, asked how many people were from Kendall and MSSD and encouraged them to dream big. I think that was wonderful.
Thank you. You know, actually, at that time, there was a total of 14. Two of them had passed away. Dr. Edward and Nathan Mayberry had passed away. So really, there were 14 total.
I have another question for you. So between the first and second edition of the book, what are the differences between those two?
Well, the first edition was quite profound. The first edition talked about a total of 12 or 11 of the 12 that were interviewed on that panel that day. And they told some amazing stories. Amazing, and they wrote out their own stories. The second edition of the book approached it a little bit differently. And the main difference is that I included follow-up conversations with the original group from the first edition. And then I added 9 new folks who had gotten their PhD or their terminal degrees. So there were actually 2 or 3 of those who had JDs in that second edition. And then Roger O'Kee I also included him, even though he the first known Black deaf person to get his PhD and graduated from Shaw University. That was back in 1908 and 1912, respectively. And then Claudia Gordon would become a JD 100 years after that. So I thought it was so important to make a record of that for historical purposes and to really share some of the amazing stories that I found out about. Also in that second edition, I spotlighted the 7 PhD candidates who are now in the pipeline. And I talked about some of their amazing stories and asked them to make some recommendations to higher education and how they could support student involvement, specifically Black deaf students, to be in that pipeline. So there was some important differences between the first and second edition.
I remember the first edition was really quite lovely. And in the second edition, you expanded on that. And some of the stories that you shared really touched my heart in a profound way. And how we wanted to hear from the stories of those people, what they experienced. And it was really nice to see that and to see the growth over the course of 100 years, the first Black deaf attorney, and then the second and now the third. And it's really quite awesome to witness this.
So far we have documented 3 Black deaf attorneys, the second being Claudia Gordon, as I mentioned, and the third being Dwayne Halliburton. So it's very exciting, and I think it's so important to document our history. We have to tell our story. If we don't, who will? So
Absolutely.
It's so important for Black deaf children to have role models to look up to have heroes and sheroes, to be able to dream and achieve what they have achieved someday.
That's excellent. So my next question for you, how did you feel writing the second edition? What was your inspiration?
That's a really good question. I would say by the time of the second edition, it couldn't have come at a more unfortunate time, because as I began to collect my thoughts and get ready for writing the second edition of the book, the world was challenged by a crisis, and that crisis was the COVID-19 pandemic. And basically we watched what happened as Black men and women were brutally murdered by the police. So it was definitely a time of angst and conflict to see all that in the media, and then to watch George Floyd's life being sucked out of him. It was so distressing and emotional, and there was so much in it. It just was like, the fact that we were shut in, we couldn't get out. 2020 was just a difficult year. It was a hell of a year, to put it mildly. So the second edition, it was not focused on how much we've come as a society, but rather how much we still have left to do as a society. So definitely we have a lot of work to do. And I often think of the quote that the more things change, the more they stay the same. So it was definitely, hard for me to continue to write, but I really delved into that, because the stories that they've told were absolutely fascinating. And they really helped me to have some sense of normalcy and to just, put my head down and keep moving forward. And I completed that book in less than a year.
It's interesting to talk about the year of 2020. It's a year that we will never, ever forget, because our world was flipped on its head, and there's so much that has changed with Black Lives Matter, as well as George Floyd and his death and the impact that had on all of us. And it's really interesting that you were able to find writing to be therapeutic for you, and it was helpful for you. And the result is this amazing book.
Thank you.
So there are pros and cons and positives and negatives. It was a negative situation, but a positive result.
Actually, the timing was perfect for that second edition of the book. The first book was published in 2014, so it'd been 6 years since I published the first edition. So the timing was right for that second edition, and it gave me something positive to focus on and to look forward to.
I wholeheartedly agree with that. So let me go on to our next question now. From the very rich personal stories and the data that you were able to collect between the first and second edition of the Black PhD project, what stood out for you in that research?
I guess what really stood out for me was, first of all, I can't say this enough, the stories were absolutely amazing in terms of them talking about how they overcame barriers in order to achieve their dream. And with the first and second edition of the book, we also talked about role models, or the fact that they desired to have role models. So role models definitely play an important part in our lives in terms of offering us the support that we need on our educational journey. And I definitely believe that we have the responsibility to reach back and pull others out of the deep end, to give them the support that they need in order to get through this pipeline and to succeed. So what stood out for me is that with each group, they each recognize the importance of having role models. And I remember that that was actually shared during the panel. I know that you and I talked about the role models that we looked up to and the fact that we definitely need that.
I remember this panel, and I remember at the time how I accommodated about Dr. Glenn Anderson being my role model, because he was always tapping me on the shoulder, asking me when I was going to get my PhD. And we actually do have a clip of that. And I think we are supposed to show that next clip now. Is that true?
Push you along to accomplish your goals? How influential were they in helping you to do that?
Dr. Angela McCaskill, my sister, was my role model. As I was growing up, I kept my eye on her, and she was an absolute bookworm. We have opposite personalities. She's an introvert and I'm the extrovert. She was always inside studying. In the summertime, I said, girl, come on outside. What are you doing? So she's just the opposite of me. I watched her, and she won many awards for reading books during the summer. So she became my role model, and I looked up to her. And then in the doctoral program, my role model was Dr. Marshall, Dr. Bill Marshall. Are you here, Dr. Marshall? Hi, Dr. Marshall. Because of that man, Dr. Marshall, please stand and be recognized. I cannot tell you, that man has influenced me in more ways than I can even share. When I was a doctoral student, he was a tireless supporter of me. He knew I was running a race, and he said, in that last lap of the race, you're going to be tired. And he said, come on. He ran with me the entire lap. I thank you, Dr. Marshall. Another important person that I'd like to mention, earlier we talked about 12 people in the United States. And his program, Administration and Supervision, has graduated 8 of them from his program. Not only graduated, but all of them are very successful. So thank you, Dr. Marshall, for your outstanding leadership.
Dr. Carolyn McCaskill. I'd like to thank my sweet sister for her comments. And it's true, I was a bookworm and I still am a bookworm. I still love books. My role model, I need to mention again, is Dr. Glenn Anderson. Because every time I saw Glenn, he was always reminding me, you gotta get that PhD. And so I started trying to hide from him and avoid him. And anytime I see Glenn, I'd go the other way. But, you know, Dr. Roz is another person who has been a wonderful mentor to me. And they would be like, Carolyn, you got to get that PhD. And again, that would be another person that would try to sneak away and avoid. But the next time I saw her, I was able to tell her that I was in the PhD program. And I reminded her that she reminded me of that the sky is the limit. And Dr. Rosen always emphasized that the sky is the limit. So there's no limits that you should place for yourself. And I'd like to second what Carolyn, what Dr. McCaskill said about Dr. Marshall. I was in his program too. And when I was working on my dissertation, the work that I was doing was very challenging. I was researching on the educational experiences of deaf Black Americans. And, you know, looking back on that, the residential school experience, their exposure to sign language, and I explaining to Dr. Marshall all about it, and he was in 100% supporting my endeavor. And sometimes when you're in the PhD program, there are times of sadness, the times of discouragement when you don't feel like you can accomplish that. So I was able to talk to Angela.
And I sent it to her.
Right. So and I was able to vent to Dr. Marshall, and also Dr. Rosen also helped me to stay positive too. So those were my main role models. And also within my department, I'm so grateful to them too. MJ, Bienvenue. There were people also who asked me to serve on various committees, who asked me to present in different places. And MJ would be the one to tell me, no, you need to focus on your dissertation. Arlene Kelly, Ben Vahan, everyone within my department was so supportive. The provost also, Dr. Steve Weiner, he was my classmate. I don't know if you all know that Dr. Weiner was actually a classmate of mine from back in '77. So he was very supportive. So these were all persons who played key roles in me being able to achieve that. I would not have been able to achieve my doctoral degree without your support. I really have to say that. I've had family support, friend support. There will be people who will be there for you.
It's so wonderful that we have that video.
I remember that moment. And I also want to emphasize again that, you know, we don't achieve anything alone. No one stands alone. You always have somebody behind you, supporting you, advising you, encouraging you, being a role model. And that definitely makes a difference to have that mentoring.
That is absolutely a key. Having a role model, having mentors. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I hope that many of the young people who are watching this really make note of what we're saying about the importance of having mentors.
I agree.
So my next question, we've got a first and a second edition of the book. Will there be a third edition, do you think?
Well, I'm sure there'll be another book, definitely.
Great to hear.
Because not only did I write a second edition of the book, but I also established a website called the Black Deaf PhD Project. And the purpose of that particular project is to help everyone understand the experience and the challenge that Black deaf people still face. You know, the world that they still have to navigate, the system that they still have to get through, the types of oppression they still face. When we talk about racism, autism, sexism, all the other isms that people face, classism, and so forth. We need to study how do those who face oppression, how does it impact students? How does it change their college experience, the choices that they make in college, and how do they then move on to succeed? So there's going to be a third book of some kind. And the amazing stories I include, I'm hoping will inspire the next generation of Black deaf PhD students.
I am certainly looking forward to the third edition. I can't wait, and I can only imagine the first edition is different from the second edition. And the first and second edition are more narrative. It'll be interesting to see what the third edition results in. So let me go on to my next question for you. What themes did you notice from the different stories that you spotlighted?
What themes did I notice?
Yes, what themes?
Hmm. As I look back on some of the themes, one of them was on struggle. Everyone talked about the fact that they struggled along their journey, and they made it to the finish line. They talked about the fact that they had to be persistent, that they refused to quit. No matter what happened, they kept moving forward. They strived until they made it. They accomplished what they wanted, and that stood out for me. I remember writing the dissertation, and I remember, just this huge feeling of, what we went through, all the different blocks along the road and what it took to get from point A to point B. And it doesn't matter the roadblocks that we face. I mean, we're each going to face them along the way. So that's one thing. We also talked about that on the panel. I don't know if you remember that part.
I do remember us discussing the obstacles, and I think that was actually my favorite part. One of the quotes was that obstacles actually are there to be removed, and we have to remove them whenever obstacles are in our way.
Mm-hmm.
Are you able to share any themes from people about some of the struggles they faced, but because of their persistence and their steadfastness that was able to help them? I think that's so critical to share. It's not an easy journey. It is normal to face these barriers, but to persist through them.
Right, and I remember somebody talking about that story about being on the road to getting a PhD and the fact that it wasn't easy. It's difficult, but it's something that can be accomplished. So like you talked about, if there's a mountain in your way, move it. If someone's in your way, tell them you better move or you're going to be in my way and get run over. Whatever you need to do to get to that, to that along to that
Amen.
journey, no matter
Amen.
what the magnitude is of the roadblock.
Indeed. And time is a blink of an eye. So, having said that, what message would you like to leave with the audience to people to be able to reflect on from this conversation?
There's still so much work to be done. Is a message I'd like to share. As we do a critical review of the literature, we see that there is a scant amount of data related to Black deaf people. It really focuses on their underachievements rather than their achievements. So we need stories, and we need to build a database of stories that we share. The research that I've done so far, I've documented 26, and we now have 7 who are in the pipeline currently as of this year. So by the end of this year, we should have a total of 33. That number is not 100% on target. I think there are others out there that we perhaps don't even know about. So part of my message for people watching today is that if you know of Black deaf people who have received their PhD or other terminal degrees who are not mentioned in the books that I've published, please do reach out to me because it's so important to include everyone. I want to continue reading about them. For example, when we think about post-secondary programs and various studies, I look for Black deaf PhDs in those post-secondary programs and in their reports, but there's no data. They don't report on them as a group. And so the statistics themselves, the statistic gathering needs to change.
That's very sad. No data.
Right, which means that we need to build our own data, and we need to continue to share our own stories. So that's the message that I would leave with the audience.
That's a very important message that we definitely document this information and hopefully this word will spread so that more people can learn about the stories and about the book and about the need to build our database.
You know, just recently I heard about another Black deaf person who is a deafblind woman who received her law degree from Harvard University, I believe. And so I've been trying to find the name of that person. I mean, it's so important for us to recognize them. Yeah, Amy, something like that. I know. So I'm trying to figure out how to reach out to her, get that information, and have it documented in the book.
Yes, I do agree. We do need to try to track down Haben and get her included. I do remember reading that there were some recommendations that you put at the end of the book. Would you mind expounding on those and share about the recommendations that you have?
Yes, absolutely. So basically, there were four recommendations. The first recommendation was that we establish a group of students because students expressed the feeling that, you know, they felt very alone in their own individual states. Um, and so they wanted to have some sort of connection with like minded people who were also working on their PhD. So there's really a need to have a support group for those students. Institutes of higher education can provide a safe space for that kind of relationship building to occur as a group. And especially now with the advent of COVID-19 and everything that is happening now, basically it's happening on Zoom. So that same idea would apply in terms of having a support group where folks can dialogue with one another, support and encourage one another. So that would be my first recommendation. The second recommendation is that students definitely get in contact with a mentor. Have a mentor. You know, some did on their journey, some did not on their journey. But it would definitely be good for students to have a mentor in their academic program as they pursue their PhD. It's not just possible, but if we can also have a pool of folks who are willing to be mentors that the students could choose from. And then my third recommendation was that we provide perhaps a comprehensive writing center. Many students express frustration with the writing centers on their campus in their particular program. Some of them hired staff who were incompetent, who were not fluent in ASL, or who didn't have an understanding of what their dissertation or what academic writing was all about. So that's my third recommendation. And then the fourth recommendation was so that we have a better understanding that there are basically two groups. We have those who I call domestic born folks who are from the United States who receive our terminal degree, and those who are from other countries who come study in the United States and receive their terminal degree. And there are far more of those students from other countries who receive a terminal degree than those who are born in the United States. So I question that, why that occurs. And I found that there was some factual research, someone who investigated that disparity between the two groups to see why that occurred. I feel more investigation needs to occur. The fact that there are more folks from other countries who are achieving their terminal degree than those from the United States.
Those are outstanding recommendations. And having a support group and doing further research, I think, is critical. And I think the Center for Black Deaf Studies can be in support of these recommendations.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very excited about this.
Mm-hmm.
And to be sharing this information, because we definitely can post this on our center's website so people are able to see
Mm-hmm.
and to allow people to know that they are not alone.
Right.
That sense of feeling lost in a wasteland and being just on your own, it's so important. And I'm very excited about this.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I'm definitely hopeful that the Black Deaf PhD project can collaborate with your center and collaborate with National Black Deaf Advocates and like organizations and groups because we need funding to continue with this very important research.
And also finding grants to continue the work. So you know that you can't really retire, girlfriend. I'm just saying, you may be retired from this career, but you got a lot more work to do.
True, there is a lot more work to be done, but now I'm not alone. I'm going to collaborate with all these different groups that I've talked about. I welcome your participation and involvement. Open invitation there.
Indeed, that's awesome. I think I'm done with asking my questions. And I wonder if there are any questions from the audience as well. So let me look in the chat and see what the questions are.
All right.
So the first question is, are any of these current Black deaf women with their PhDs planning or interested in becoming superintendents of deaf schools? I don't think there has ever been a deaf Black woman superintendent, at least not yet. That's an excellent question.
You know, I am not aware of any Black deaf women, but I am aware of Black deaf men. There is one man who is currently now superintendent of, I believe it's the Louisiana school, right? Ernest Garrett? Right. Yes. And he was formerly in Missouri, a superintendent of the former. He was in Missouri as a superintendent for the school for the deaf and now is in Louisiana and doing some amazing work. And we definitely need to encourage our people to apply for leadership positions such as that.
And I think he is the second Black deaf person who was a superintendent of a deaf school. The first Black deaf person was Dr. Reginald Redding.
Mm-hmm.
He was superintendent of Eastern North Carolina School for the Deaf. And now I think soon to be a doctor is this third person who we've named, and the interpreter missed the spelling of the name, but we do need to have more in the pipeline. And we don't know if any of our current Black deaf female PhDs will want to do that, but we certainly want to make sure that they're able to.
Well, Ernest Garrett is one that's in the pipeline and will be completed this year, 2021. So I'm excited that there are 7 in the pipeline.
That's awesome. Another question that's in the chat is, how did the different isms, such as autism, have an impact on your journey? Since you went to Howard University for your MSW, although Howard is an HBCU, there's still a cultural difference that may present barriers on the journey. What was that like for you?
I'm sorry, I had a little bit of freezing on your end, so I'm not sure if I understood your question, but I think it was about the HBCU experience for me, correct?
Let me repeat it. How did some of the isms, such as autism, have an impact on your journey? Since you went to Howard for your MSW, although Howard is an HBCU, there's still a cultural difference that may present barriers on your journey. What was that like for you?
All right, thank you for repeating the question. First of all, I would like to say that I attended not 1, but 2 HBCUs, Alabama State University, and that was the best 4 years of my life. That's where I really delved into Blackness and being proud of my Black experience. It was amazing, over the top experience being there. The experience at Howard University was also amazing, but in a different way. I was a professional student, working as a professional during the day, a professional student at night. And there are barriers anywhere you go, right? So, for example, I would ask for interpreters and not be able to get interpreters. I believe it was the first 2 years of my program. And I continued to fight for communication access until finally, my last year, they assigned an interpreter to me. And I am aware of other Black deaf folks who went to Howard University and who experienced the same thing. From teachers, from other people who just didn't get it. They didn't understand communication access and how that worked. And they would ask, the students with a sign language interpreter to move to a different location in the classroom. No, every other student decided where they could sit. So you did also face, you face racism at HBCUs and other issues as well.
I remember when I was working on my PhD, I took classes at Howard University. And the first couple of years, I had a very similar frustration to the one you mentioned. And I remember professors asking interpreters and me to please sit in the back of the classroom. And I thought to myself, how is that going to happen? The interpreter needed to be near the teacher. It was a big class. How was the interpreter supposed to even hear you? So that was such a disheartening experience and frustrating for me. And I remember being in touch with the Office of Disability Services for help about this. And that part is very sad at HBCUs, trying to partner with them. I do think things have improved since my time. I do think there's more awareness.
Right. I know that Dr. Liz Moore also attended Howard University during her PhD program and faced the exact same challenges and fought for communication access and filed complaints of discrimination. So it just seems that HBCUs or Howard University, they're getting federal money. What's the purpose of that? It's not to deny Black deaf people an access to education. So it's sad, unfortunate, but true, and I hope that there's been some improvement along the way.
So the next question is posed to me, and it says, it's wonderful that I've recommended mentorship, and they're asking if the center is going to work with assisting to get mentors for Gallaudet students. And yes, there is a mentorship program, and we are planning to collaborate to make that program much stronger, because we do receive several requests from people, students, who want to have mentors. So I'm very excited about that, to be able to strengthen the mentorship program. Let's see what the next question is. They're asking if we would be able to provide mentorship programs to deaf schools and to be able to help with mentorship like through the Black Deaf Student Union. If we're going to be able to provide mentoring programs to deaf schools and give tools to Black deaf students like the Black Deaf Student Union here at Gallaudet.
That's a really good question. And I think that it's out of my scope or my area of focus because I'm focusing on the PhD level. But it's definitely a good question. All students, all Black deaf students need role models. So hopefully we can develop a pool of Black deaf mentors for those who are in the pipeline.
So it looks like we've got about 5 minutes left before we close, and I'm not seeing any more questions. I don't know if there are other questions from the audience before we close. We do have a comment, an anonymous comment, and it says, Dr. Angela, you and Dr. Carolyn are such an awesome team. Dr. Angela, can we get you to consider a hybrid approach to your retirement? Because this work This is not me. This is a comment from an audience member. It's saying that this work and your leadership is so important. And I love the research that you've done and look forward to more of your work. And this attendee is laughing as they talk about this hybrid approach.
Bless your heart. Thank you. I've got a lot of work to do, right? So technically, I'm not like 100% retired. I'm still working, technically.
I actually feel like the light has just come on, and I'm very excited and look forward to collaborating with you through this Center for Black Deaf Studies to support the work that you're doing.
Oh, thank you. And I do hope that people will. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yes, there's one more comment, and it says that you and Dr. Angela are my wonderful mentors, and I will consider studying in counseling education for a PhD.
Thank you so much. I remember when we first started, gathering information for the idea about writing a book. And I reached out to people all over the United States. And they were so hungry for having this kind of discussion, and now that we have COVID, we've had these meetings on Zoom, people want to dialogue with one another about how can we do this? So I'm hoping that the Black Deaf PhD website, that we can set up some sort of Q&A meeting. So for those folks who haven't started a PhD program but are considering it, as well as those who are in the pipeline, can get together. I think advocating for that kind of support is critical.
I agree with that. And it does look like we have one final question. I thought we were about to close, but we have another question. And that is, before we close, how do we support Black deaf people who haven't been to school for a long time, but want to go back to school? How can we support them? Because based on the barriers and white systems taking them down, what kind of advice do you have for them?
As I just mentioned, we're going to have a session for those who are not in school yet because they're starving to have a conversation with other people to guide them to even start this journey, to know who, when, what, where, how to get it going. So we do want to set up a meeting where people can come and answer the questions that folks have about it and just engage in a dialogue about how we can make it happen. So yes, most definitely. We see sparks of interest about this conversation. We see excitement about it. So please get in contact with those people and check in. Let us know where you are in the process, if you've applied for a PhD program, and just let us know where you're going and where you are in the process.
Thank you so much for taking your time and allowing me to have the pleasure of interviewing you. And I do hope that people have been inspired by this webinar and will buy your book. Thank you to our interpreters. Thank you to the support staff and for everybody who's here who's joined us. Have a wonderful weekend, everyone.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your welcoming me, and I hope that folks can get the book. Here's what it looks like, and there's the flyer. Thank you so much. Sending my love.